Hello and welcome everyone. I hope y'all having a great day today. If you want to become John Elden Ring himself, Wylder is your guy. And today I've got one build with two variations for you guys. One variant focused on a blend of survivability and damage, and the second variation focused on going all in with damage, though variation 2 does require a pinch of RNG. Also, if you guys want to see a more in-depth breakdown on this build or any other builds that I make sure to check out mobalytics.gg for not only my builds, but for a ton of other builds and guides on the website that can turn this game into an absolute breeze. And without further ado, let's do this. For our first relic, we'll be using the Slate Whetstone. You'll be able to find this after progressing far enough into the Wylder's Remembrance questline. And what this is going to allow us to do is have a follow-up attack whenever we're using our grapple hook, as long as we have a greatsword equipped. And not only does this let our character skill deal more damage, but it also slaps a fire damage buff onto our greatsword, and that's going to allow us to deal more overall damage with every single melee attack with that greatsword. And this pairs up nicely with our physical attack up passive, which is the second passive on the Whetstone, which just gives us more damage output on pretty much anything that'll scale up with this physical attack, no matter what weapon we do end up picking up. Even though the first passive for greatswords can be really nice to increase your character skill's damage, the thing about Wylder is he can pretty much pick up almost every weapon in the game and make it work. I mean, I've had runs where I'm using the Reduvia, and then I'm going shield and spear, and then I'm dual wielding, and then I'm one-handing. He can just use a plethora of weapons. So I wouldn't limit yourself just to using a greatsword, even though that passive is really nice. I would just consider it a bonus if you get your hands on a really good greatsword. But the nice thing about Wylder is how much he can mitigate the bad RNG in this game. Like, there's been plenty of games where I play Revenant and I beat a tough boss and I see a golden drop and it's just something like Mogwyn's Sacred Spear, a Bolt of Grandsax, or Axe of Godfrey. And I mean, those are really good weapons, but I can't do anything with those. But on the other hand, Wylder can wield every single one of these with ease, and it's just really nice because a majority of your runs, as long as there's good loot in general, more than likely you'll be able to use it, which is super convenient. And this relic simply just helps you pull more damage out of any of these weapons, especially if they happen to be a greatsword. For our next relic, we'll be using the Blessed Iron Coin. You're able to get this after progressing far enough into the Duchess Remembrance questline. What this relic is going to do for us is give us continuous HP recovery and increase our max HP, and overall that's going to add to our survivability. But not only that, with the constant health regen and this increased health, it gives us a chance to maybe not get hit so hard that our passive activates, and that can mean that it takes one additional hit or more for our passive to activate, which means we just have a lot more breathing room to make a few more mistakes than usual. For our final relic, we'll be using the Golden Dew. You can find this after progressing far enough into the Duchess Remembrance questline. The role that this relic is going to play is basically, as long as you have an affinity on your weapon, no matter which one you find during the run, whether it's holy damage, lightning, magic, or fire, you just get an outright damage bonus just for using the weapon. For example, here's me holding the Golden Order Greatsword without the passive. And here's me holding the Golden Order Greatsword with the passive. So as you can see, it's a pretty noticeable damage difference just for slapping this thing on. Also, for anybody that was curious, you can use the flame buff that you put on greatswords. And if you have a greatsword that already has an element on it, like this one having holy, you can add the 13 fire damage to that weapon, and now you just have a damage bonus. And even though split damages aren't exactly the best thing ever, the fact that you can just slap on extra damage is always great. Of course, if you're not a fan of boosting up your elemental damage and you would like to get a damage increase based off of getting like poison and scarlet rot, you could always use the Knight of the Wise relic instead, which is going to be a little bit harder to only find poison and scarlet rot weapons, but if you do, you always get a damage increase whenever you do proc those status effects. And if you're not a fan of either one of those, you could put on the Knight of the Miasma and you'll get a damage increase whenever you're attacking frostbitten enemies. And your starting armament will get Chilling Mist, which could be nice. Overall, the yellow slot is going to be extremely flexible, and it's up to you to choose which one you want to use out of those three. Of course, all three of them serve one purpose, and that's to help you deal more damage one way or the other. Elemental weapons are probably going to be the easiest thing to come across, but you know, you can always still go and look for Scarlet Rot and poison weapons, and Frostbite is also an option, even though that might be even harder than the past two to come across. But those are options if you want to try those out too. For the second variant of the build, the goal is going to be pretty straightforward as we keep the slate whetstone and the golden dew, but we switch out our blessed iron coin for a red relic that says art activation spreads fire in the area. As a small disclaimer, I did find this relic while doing Wylder's Remembrance, and when grabbing the mending earring on the far left table, 2 delicate burning scenes spawn as part of the quest. But I'm not certain if they always roll this exact passive, which is why I said it takes some RNG. But if it does, then you should be good to just get this every single time, but I'm not entirely sure. And the effects of the passive are pretty straightforward. They're just going to make sure that your ultimate deals even more damage if your enemies get stuck in the flame area. And it makes an already hard hitting ultimate hit even harder. And that's just going to secure it getting reses even better and dealing damage to enemies even better. So while it has a super simple effect, more damage is always better for an ultimate that hits this hard. And that's gonna do it for today's build and both variations of it. Of course, I do have 2 tips for you guys before you go to make playing Wylder that much easier. Tip number 1 is to make sure to break statues around the map with your ultimate. This gives you a chance to just get some pretty decent loot. I've even managed to get a smithing stone 2 out of these before. The final tip is if you're lacking ranged options, make sure to pick up great bows, since with Wylder's stats you'll be able to get some pretty decent damage out of them. And the same thing goes for the normal bows also, since he has some pretty decent dexterity. And that is gonna do it for today's video, guys. As always, if you made it this far into the video, thank you so very much. It's currently 11 AM here. I've been editing and setting up the video as perfectly as possible. Let me know who you guys want to see up next. We've got the Recluse, and I think I still forgot his name, the Executor. Boom, I figured it out this time. And we got the Recluse and the Executor left, so let me know who you guys want to see next. And I hope you all have a great and amazing day, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.